godforsaken collection of stiffs who run this state? Say, I think Minnesota, like California, has clung to the idea that when it comes to self-defense, we Minnesotans must first retreat. Am I on the right track, Kenny?
Yes. It's been taught for years in my permit to carry classes, yes.
In California, a sheriff is speaking out against a bill that the Democrats have come up with that essentially makes self-defense illegal in California. And that's not unlike this state. Assembly Bill 1333 was introduced in California 2 weeks ago. Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco gained traction on social media with a post reacting to the bill, which he says will essentially make self-defense illegal in the state. Los Angeles Assembly member Rick Zur introduced the bill, which he says aims to narrow the criteria for justifiable homicide. But Bianco told Fox News Digital that the bill will just further embolden criminals. The assembly member that has come up with this, if it was his idea, he certainly has absolutely no business being an assembly member representing people, Bianco said. And what my knowledge is of how things happen in Sacramento, I'm not giving him an out because he certainly had some talking points for this bill, but these are bills written by special interest groups, and the majority of the special interest in Sacramento are pro-criminal. And so apparently let's keep going. Bianco continued, they want criminals to thrive. It's just bizarre to me. How could you even have thought that process up that says people should not be able to protect themselves? Honestly, I don't understand it, and I've never heard a sane, legitimate argument otherwise. Bianco said the bill will make it more difficult for law-abiding citizens to protect themselves from violent criminals. This is basically saying that if somebody approaches you and is going to rob you or steal your stuff or harm you, your only option is to run, and they get whatever they want, Bianco said. If they're there to steal your car or your purse or your wallet or to harm your wife or your kids, your only option is to run away. They get to do whatever it is they want, and you just have to run away. And this is the absolute ultimate display of zero consequences for criminal behavior. Bianco, by the way, is running for governor of California. Wouldn't that be a sea change in that godforsaken state?
Well, yeah, because Gavin Newsom's got to get prepared for his run for president.
I don't have time. I don't have the energy to
Is this a bill that's being pushed through the House and the Senate in California right now?
Yeah.
So it's more than just a talking stage.
There is no one, Bianco said. There is no one other than the Democrats in Sacramento who think this is a good idea. And the beautiful part of this is based on what I did, a viral video calling him out, and making people call and demand better, and other people doing the same thing. We exposed it. So this bill, there's no way, he said, this bill will pass. Now, in Minnesota, it's been talked about this session. A bill to expand your right to self-defense in Minnesota has failed a House vote.
Right. Yeah.
Did you know that? That was last week.
I did know that, yes.
In Minnesota, you can use force, even deadly force, to defend yourself, provided you first tried to get away from your attacker and your counterforce is commensurate with the danger you are facing.
Correct.
And that duty to retreat legal standard will remain the case because the House was unable to get enough votes just this past Thursday to pass House File 13, which would have allowed a person to use reasonable force in self-defense, regardless of whether a reasonable possibility of retreat to avoid the danger exists. So the Mysterians in this state are suggesting that you can't, what they call it is, well, you people that we don't trust, meaning the DFL is looking at the mass of Minnesota citizens, we don't trust you and we don't like you. And as far as I'm concerned, as far as we're concerned, if you don't retreat, then all you're wanting to do is shoot first and ask questions later.
That's kind of the message that I've felt.
That's
over
what
the
they
years.
think of us. They don't. They don't think highly of us at all. Either does Walls. Walls has been saying things like, "You'll end up people shooting each other for a parking space." I don't think that's ever happened in Minnesota.
It's so much the case, Joe, that ever since, I don't know, what do I get these every 5 years? You have to go and re-up and take the full class again. And I was in the very first class, and all of them since then. They always preach to you, even if your shooting in your mind was justified and your life was in danger, he was coming at you with some sort of weapon, or maybe he'd already fired shots at you. You have to stress on the 911 call and when the police show up that you were afraid for your life. I've been told in many classes to always say and repeat it, I was afraid for my life. I was afraid for my life.
Well, didn't we have the story yesterday where a guy, or 2 days ago, carjacking victim, and he should have been killed, but the bullet missed his head?
Yeah, it was a kid, actually.
Yeah.
It was a little kid.
Okay, so to avoid the ire,
You'll still get the ire, but yes, I see where you're going. Yes is the answer.
to avoid the ire, I go out to my car in the parking lot of a store, and I'm confronted by a thug with a gun pointed at me. And I happen to have a gun. I'm not supposed to use my gun. I'm supposed to run.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if the guy shoots me when I'm running?
Well, then you're dead or you're wounded.
Oh, is that how that works?
And a gunfight in your mind and a real gunfight are two very, very different propositions. Because in your mind, you always have time to pull your gun and you're always ready.
And you don't. You don't.
No, and there's a good chance it's not going to play out like you say. The one rule that sticks in my mind, not rule, but advice, is an example. You're in the convenience store. You're in the Dorito aisle. You hear a commotion at the counter. Obviously, they're being robbed, held up at gunpoint. It's your job to get away from there or stay away from that confrontation, no matter what. Even though you think you have a firearm, you think you could stop it, you think you could save lives. If your life is not in danger, it is up to you to get out of there.
Okay, what if I'm in my own house? Where am I supposed to run to?
Well, they always say you're fine in your house defending your life and your family. And the joke is, of course, if you shoot them in the backyard, be sure you drag them in the house.
Right.
That's the old joke. But no, in that case, if you have a detached garage, you're standing in your kitchen looking out the window and you see your garage being robbed.
You better just put up with it.
Yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
the store, the Minneapolis guy, the alley, the neighbor was just looking out his window and they shot at him. Remember the video we all
I'm
talked
sure
about?
that kid's
Couple
back on the
weeks ago.
street.
Yeah,
Mary will find some compassion for him.
yeah. His brain isn't fully developed, Joe.
We did have a case a few years ago where one guy with a permit to carry was involved in two situations. One was where Summit Avenue meets the Mississippi in that park. You know,
I
that
remember
park?
that from years ago. I do.
And he was also involved in a shooting on, I believe it was 35W, right around Portland or Chicago.
I remember that as well.
With a school bus. If I
I don't.
remember right.
Yeah, I'm not buying that guy's BS.
And it was the same guy, and I think wasn't he convicted in that school bus thing?
I believe so, but not for the.
No, in the park it was justified.
We are governed by people who, well, when it comes to Democrats, we're governed by people who don't like us. They don't like people.
And then you go to Florida, where the governor and the sheriffs and all the deputies and the police, they're all on the side of the homeowner / gun owner. And they actually say to the camera, you should expect to get shot and killed if you're in this state and you're going to rob somebody's house. Quite different there.
If I'm in my car and my gun happens to be available to me, and I'm approached by a would-be car thief
Yeah.
who sticks his gun at my window and pointing at my head and says, "I want your car," I think these people in Minnesota expect me to say, "Okay, get out of the car and watch him drive away."
Yeah. What?
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. But the conversation you need to have with yourself is my car worth the lawsuit, or is it worth losing my life? You know, do you show that person your firearm? Are you ready to shoot that guy through the window?
What if the car is full of kids and a wife?
Hammer the gas.
Right. Right. You know, those are all legitimate questions.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this.
Well, I mean, how do you know that surrendering your car to this fellow, that you'll still get your kids out of the car?
Yeah. And what about this scenario? What if the gun is fake? The perp has a fake gun.
So then you're going to prison for life.
You shoot him.
Yeah.
He's dead.
Yeah.
And now what? Either way, it's going to be an awful situation, and there's going to be a lot of court.
And what our leaders want us to know is don't dare think of defending yourself. Basically, that's what it comes down to.
You're on your
Seems
own.
like that's what the message is. Yeah.
Don't dare defend yourself.
It seems that way.
And it's what this guy is saying, and Bianco is saying in California. We're not supposed to defend ourselves. And he's running for governor. Do you think the people of California must be as stupid as the people in Minnesota?
Yes.
To continue to put up with this BS.
I'll vote for a new Democrat this time.
Yeah, get
See,
me
if
a
I
different
was-
Democrat.
I have my truck is 2016. It's got 168,000 on it. If I was
Don't you have 3 trucks?
Yeah,
I have
why?
3 trucks right now. Yeah, don't even step to me. If somebody came up to me and said, "I'm taking your car," and they pointed a gun at me, I'd say, and I'd pull out my gun and I'd say, "You make this truck disappear. I never want to see it again. If this thing turns up anywhere at any time, I'm going to hunt you down and I'm going to take care of you."
Yep. I better
That's
not
where
see
I'm at.
this truck on